Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Hawks Eye podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Coots, and today I got a special guest coming on the show. We're going to do a bit of film breakdown. We're going to talk about this first half of the Seahawks season, what he's been able to see and how he feels this team is going. And my guest today will be Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks, the Emerald City Spectrum. Corbin's going to come on. We're going to talk a little bit about this running game. We're going to talk about, how this team can get better. Are they really as good as their 5-2 record says, or could they be even better? And just get Corbin's general vibes on where this team's at in Mike Macdonald's year 2. So we'll get into that right after this. But before, I just want to remind everyone, thank you so much for their support and everything you guys have done to help me grow this channel. I'm still striving for my 2,000 subscribers. I'm just over at about 1,100 now. So it's great. And all the support's been amazing. But if you haven't already and you're watching this and you're unsubscribed, just click that subscription button at the bottom of this video. It helps me out. It doesn't cost you anything. And that way you'll always be able to see any more future Hawks Eye content that comes out. So with that being said, after this, Corbin Smith.
Down and 10. Play fake to Walker. Sam rolls out near side. Throw is made. Touchdown! Seahawks! Jackson Smith-Njigba from 12 yards. Second and 4 from his own 34. McMahon throws intercepted again. It's Tupu. He's inside the 20, the 15, the 10, the 5. Touchdown Seahawks! 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns for the Seahawks. A 34-yard return. Loaf with the Tupu. Welcome to the NFL, baby.
All right, everyone, welcome back in. And I am so fortunate to be joined by Corbin Smith of the Emerald City Spectrum and Locked On Seahawks podcast. Corbin, how are you, man?
I'm great, Bryce. Thanks for having me as always.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to today, Corbin, to doing a bit of a film breakdown with you on some of the things that stood out to you in this Houston Texans game, as well as we kind of get your opinion on where this team's at going into their bye week. They're kind of halfway through the season, almost to a point that extra week now kind of throws the season all out of wonk and that. But let's start here, Corbin, and let's start about the fact this team's 5-2 going into their bye. How good is this team really? Are they as good as their record indicates, or are they even better than maybe what their record indicates?
I subscribe to the Bill Parcells theory. You are what your record says you are. And Seattle, look, Pittsburgh rolled a little bit of an egg last week against Cincinnati, but Pittsburgh's been pretty darn good every other game. Seattle went down to Pittsburgh and won that game. They had Tampa Bay on the ropes. I know they gave up a lot of points, but that was a really good game. They proved they belong in that discussion with Tampa Bay, and they were missing a bunch of guys in that contest. You've seen them go on the road, and they haven't lost yet on the road. Houston, 2-4. They've got offensive issues. That's a really good defense. And even with 4 turnovers, you put up 27 points, the most that the Texans have given up this year by a large margin. So I think this team is every bit 5-2. I don't know if I'm ready to lump them into NFC Super Bowl contender like, say, somebody like Dan Orlovsky is, but I don't think they're far off from that. And if they can play cleaner football on offense to go with the defense they had on Monday night, and they get healthier on that side of the ball, then this can absolutely be a team that is in that mix when we get to January.
Is that one of the more frustrating things about this team, I guess, in the first half of this season, Corbin, is that we haven't necessarily seen a complete game from them where special teams, defense, and offense are all kind of clicking for the entirety of a game, or at least the majority of it?
Yeah, I'd say the Saints game, like I know on offense that they really put the foot on the brakes the second half. I think they would have kept things going if it wasn't already a massacre at that point. That's really the closest they've had to a complete game. And it's always tough when you play backups for a good chunk of the second half too, to really assess that. But yeah, you can look at this 2 ways. You can be frustrated, or you can look at it like Mike Macdonald was on Monday night after the game, like, we're 5-2 and we haven't played a complete game. Like, to me, that's a good thing. Like, we've got so much room to grow, and we've won 5 of our last 6 games. They are finding ways, even when they make a lot of mistakes, they are still finding ways to win games, which last year there were several games that was the opposite, where they should have won and they just found ways to lose. And we saw that against San Francisco in the season opener. They've kind of shifted that narrative a little bit. And I think it's the belief. I think it's the culture. So I kind of buy what Mike Macdonald's selling there. Like, I'm 5-2. I've won 5 of my last 6 games. And I'm doing it with so many things that we can get better at. And it's kind of scary what this team could be if they can put all that stuff together. And rather than dwelling on those mistakes, if they lost the game Monday night, you're having a different discussion. But again, they are finding ways to make the plays they need to win games consistently. And there's so much room for improvement. And so that's why I am bullish this could be a team that by January, we're talking differently about where they fit in the NFC hierarchy.
Yeah, and this NFC conference this year, Corbin, seems kind of really wide open to the point like teams are constantly moving up. Every week they put out the new playoff projection and everyone's moved around. Now we're playing the Eagles. Like, it's all over the place. And this NFC West as a whole, like, the 49ers keep winning, even though I don't know how they're doing it with the skeleton crew they are kind of walking out there at this point. Outside of Christian McCaffrey, they just got George Kittle back. But how do you see the NFC West side of this shaping up for Seattle? They've got obviously the Rams a couple weeks after this bye is finished. They'll take them on. They've got the Rams over the next, obviously, back end. They got 2 games here, then they got another Cardinals game, and then they got the 49ers at the end of the year. Do you think maybe halfway through this back end of the season, you'll see the NFC West separation start to happen a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting. Our show we did on Wednesday on Locked On Seahawks, we were touching on who's going to crack first. And I was kind of having a tough time with that. Like, common sense would tell you, well, no Bosa, Fred Warner's out. 49ers have had their backup quarterback, Mac Jones, in. Like, they can't keep doing this forever. Like, it almost feels like the Breaking Bad meme. Like, he can't keep getting away with this. Like, you're wondering when the 49ers are going to fall back, but they keep winning. They keep getting the job done. Kyle Shanahan and his coaching staff have done a fantastic job there. But I would still say that is the team of the 3 that I am not sold on being able to carry this momentum they've got right now. I find it hard to believe in a 17-game schedule that team with the injuries they've got, there are going to be games that they slip up and they lose, like the one they had to the Jaguars a few weeks ago. There are going to be games like that on the schedule, and getting Brock Purdy back healthy, if they get Ayuk back at some point, is going to help. But they've got a lot of key injuries on that defensive side of the ball. I just think at some point it is going to catch up with them. The Rams have generally been really healthy, aside from Puka Nakua's little ankle that he's dealing with right now. And Matthew Stafford stayed in the lineup. If they stay healthy, then obviously they've got the talent to run this through and be one of the contenders for the top seed in the NFC. But I think the Seahawks are every bit there as well. And they're going to get healthier. They're going to get a bunch of guys back after this bye week. So look, I think this is between the Seahawks and the Rams right now. And it's not that I am being a doubter of the 49ers, because they have proven me wrong. And look, I'm not going to sleep on them. I still think the 49ers very easily can be a playoff team. I think the Rams and Seahawks are better football teams as constructed with the health. And I think San Francisco's got a tougher path at the end of the season schedule-wise too.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was going to say about the 49ers on this. Their back end of this gets a little bit tougher. The biggest thing for me that stands out of the top 3 teams, because I think we can kind of safely put the Cardinals off in their own little area here, Corbin. But
Arizona's in a bird cage again. Yeah. We don't need to talk about them.
Yeah, exactly. I look at Seattle, and I think there's one added bonus that we've seen over this, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks of the season, really since week 2. We can go from week 2 against Pittsburgh. Seattle has had to play backup players significantly more than most teams. Obviously, the 49ers have, but the 49ers know they're not getting their stars back. Seattle knows they're getting Witherspoon back. They're getting Julian Love back. They're getting Derek Hall back. They're going to get Robbie Utes back as well, but it's just the fact that you've gotten Ty Okada and some of these other guys so many more valuable reps against top-end competition that if you are later down the season and another injury pops up, you're not worried about putting Ty Okada back in at safety for Julian Love or Kobe Bryant. I think that's so invaluable for Seattle right now that, like, you can't put a price on that in getting that kind of play time out of your depth pieces.
Yeah, and then Bryce, you look at a game like the Tampa Bay game where they gave up 38 points, and a lot of fans, it was the end of the world. Obviously, I was not viewing it that way with the injuries they had, and I just think Tampa Bay, like, you got to give them credit. They scheme the hell out of it on offense. They do a great job, and they just put Seattle in a bind. And with all the new players they had playing back there, look, negative reps can be good reps. They can be. And I think you've seen growth in the last couple games since then, where a lot of these guys like Tyakata and Drake Thomas and, the few snaps DeAnthony Bell's had there. Nick Eamon-Warrior is a rookie and missing the games that he did. He's kind of getting his feet wet on the run, so to speak. Like, you're going to have mistakes that are made. And you're seeing this group grow. You're seeing them blossom, and you're seeing the emphasis on competition. This is not a shot at Pete Carroll. I think that the competition mantra that he had, I think he maintained it for most of his time in Seattle. But I thought the last year or two that he was head coach, that kind of fell by the wayside. There were opportunities where guys had earned chances and they didn't get on the field. Mike Macdonald does not play that game. Mike Macdonald does not care if you were a draft pick and a guy competing against you is undrafted. Josh Job's outplaying you, Rick Woolen. I'm going to play him. Or Drake Thomas is outplaying you, Tyrese Knight. I'm going to play him. He is going to do that. So he has lived up to Kobe Bryant last year. Hey, you know what, Rayshon Jenkins? I know you've been hurt. Sorry you got Wally pipped, but Kobe Bryant's earned this. He's going to play. And I think that really has permeated throughout the entire team. They have bought everything Mike Macdonald's selling because he is not giving you lip service on anything. He is letting guys play that earn their opportunities. And now you're going to see that play out here in the second half where, like you said, if you have to play Tyakata for a game or two, they're 3-1 in the games that he has started, and he's made a lot more good plays than bad ones. Drake Thomas is going to be your guy now from here on out. He's earned that job at will linebacker. You're confident in those guys, and they're confident if they have to play Tyrese Knight down the line. So they are building a ton of depth that is going to make it this defense can withstand some of those injuries in the second half of the season.
So, Corbin, let's talk about this defense because Mike Macdonald is kind of building a masterpiece here, it looks like. And he's setting a new standard in Seattle in some respects on how defense is to be played. And even throughout the NFL, what has stood out to you most about this version of Mike Macdonald's defense compared to last year's version?
The ability to get after the quarterback with the front four and how that has given Mike Macdonald flexibility when he's going to bring his pressure packages. I just feel like right now, we saw it Monday night, they mixed in a few more pressures than what they have been. And I actually called that in my keys to victory because CJ Stroud had been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL against pressure this year. And he had one of the highest turnover-worthy play rates in the NFL. He lived up to that in this game. He probably should have thrown 3 or 4 interceptions. That might be the one downside of this game for Seattle's defense. They missed turnover opportunities. Macdonald lamented that after the game. But you get 13 passes defense, 12 pass breakups, and an interception on 49 pass attempts. Bryce, that's a 26% pass breakup or pass defense rate. That is insane. They were getting their hands on the football. They were getting pressure with their front four. They were very deftly mixing in the pressure packages. There was a sequence. Ernest Jones had the backward pass that he forced on the second play. The play before that, it was a double A-gap blitz with Ernest Jones and Drake Thomas. Drake Thomas was the one that got to C.J. Stroud on that play. And the next play, you know what? I'm going to run a twist blitz. I'm going to have a stunt here, a hard stunt by Byron Murphy across the face of the right guard, and I'm going to loop the blitz with Ernest Jones behind. He's untouched again. Tyakata and Drake Thomas coming on the same play, overloading aside. It felt almost like a Rex Ryan blitz, the way that it orchestrated. The overflow on one side, and Houston did not have the guys there to block it. Tyakata comes through untouched, and bam, finishes off C.J. Stroud. That's what we are seeing right now is Mike Macdonald is not having to blitz for the sake of blitzing. He's not having to pressure for the sake of pressuring because his front four is getting the job done. But that is giving him the flexibility when he feels like, you know what, I want to turn the heat up on somebody. he can open up his whole bag of tricks. And we're starting to see that now. And you can tell he's having a blast doing it with even reserve players that are in the starting lineup. He is finding ways to put them in positions to be successful with that scheming.
The one thing for me, Corbin, when I see some of those overload blitzes, like especially Drake Thomas's and Ty Okada's blitz that they pulled, it threw me back to like the Dom Capers Pittsburgh Steelers defenses where you had Kevin Green and, some of the other players
Brown
on this. Yeah, exactly. And like they would just bring Rod Woodson in at safety and he's coming on a blitz, and just that era of Blitzburgh that they had. There's so many things about it that what Mike Macdonald's doing right now is just he's dialing up the pressure, which is what he said he even wanted to do in the offseason. I want to be able to create more pressure situations. I think now that he's more comfortable with what these depth guys can do, he's able to actually fulfill that part of the defense.
Yep.
Not okay. We got to hold back, guys. We can't do that because we don't have Julian Love and we don't have Devin Witherspoon. No. It's okay. Like, I know how to work these guys now. The one thing for me that still holds on this defense, Corbin, and it kind of came in the Tampa Bay game, is Mike Macdonald's ability to adjust in game when he loses players that he is built maybe a game plan around. Like, obviously the 49er game with Nick Eamon-Wari was pretty big and evident when we had to put Ty Okada in, and then losing Derek Hall on the Tampa Bay game didn't help things either. That's where I'm going to be interested to see, like, now that he's got these depth pieces up to speed, losing those guys down the stretch, if it happens again, knock on wood that it doesn't, but I think Mike's going to be a little bit more comfortable in game dialing things up still.
Yeah, and I think the players are going to be more confident in their ability. I mean, like, look, Ty Okada in week 1, you're getting thrown into the fire. Like, our game plan was our safety here is going to be playing on George Kittle. Like, look, George Kittle makes all pro safeties look bad. And you're throwing Okada in there, and I think he did the best that he could do there in those circumstances. But now, if you end up in a similar situation in week 18, Ty Okada is going to come in there feeling great and feeling like, you know what, I can do everything that Mike Macdonald wants me to do. And I loved the way I asked Macdonald about this on Tuesday, how he has seen Ty Okada grow, and the big message for him that he's been sending. You're not going to, you don't have to be everywhere all the time. Like, let the plays come to you. Your aggressive nature maintains, but he basically said that, the ball finds energy. Be that energy. And he has done that the last couple of games. And he's just playing so much faster, quicker, more confident. So when you do get in those situations, I think Mike Macdonald, when game planning now, isn't going to be, oh man, if I lose one of these guys, what's going to happen? He's going to say, all right, Ty, look, I trust you. I believe in you. I think you can get the job done. It's different from week 1 to now in that regard.
Ty Okada this season reminds me very much of Kobe Bryant last season. When Kobe got in, it took a little bit, and then Mike kind of said similar things about Kobe, like he knows where to be. He's in the right spots. He's doing the right things. Just trust what you're doing. And now we've seen what Kobe Bryant's turned into. I'm not saying Ty Okada is necessarily going to be Kobe Bryant, but he's on that similar trajectory in this Mike Macdonald defense and playing in Mike's system where do your job, don't do more than that, and it'll work out for you in the end. But Corbin, we promised everyone we'd do a bit of a film breakdown here. So I know you got a couple of clips, and one of them you and me have talked at length about already, so we'll bring that one up first. But this is one of the runs from Sunday night that kind of drove both of us a little bit nuts.
So I want to give a little context on this, because if you follow me on social media, I posted this play, and look, I'm going to just be upfront here. My opinion of this, I think that Ken Walker III did not make the right read on this, and he ended up running into defenders because of that as a result. And I've had the chance now. I've talked to a couple of former Seahawks running backs that I have the ability to talk to, and I'm grateful that are guys that will chat with me about these things. But I kind of wanted to bounce some ideas off with this play, because I thought, maybe the NFL scheming is over my head or whatever, which I don't believe that. But I just kind of wanted to get the perspective of running backs. And generally, we all reached similar consensuses watching this play that there's some reasons to understand why Ken Walker bounced this, but at the same time, just knowing what they were running, the play type, the concept, this is an outside split zone. You have to read what the 3 tech is doing. And I just feel like if you're using your vision, your eyes correctly, that it's obvious what the read should be here on this play, Bryce. And so I'm going to play this run here, and then we'll have a chance to kind of slow it down, revisit some things on it. But again, this is a split zone. You've got A.J. Barner initially lined up as an H-back, then he moves over to the tight end. You've got him wham blocking across. That's a split zone. And Ken Walker is going to end up bouncing this play. Now, zoom this back again. So we get the motion from A.J. Barner. He moves out to the tight end spot. And again, I want you to watch Ken Walker. This is a wide track. It is an outside zone track. But he's got the football right here. I'm actually going to slide it back just a little bit. Right after he got the football here, you can see number 97. He was the 3-tech. Sundell has got him. He's trying to block him. He's got outside leverage here. You've got a linebacker next to Gray Zabel that's got outside leverage here. So I'm just going to ask you, Bryce, like, what do you think should be done on this play?
So my old college offensive line coach had a saying, Corbin, and he said, for every ass, there is a hole. And in this case, you need to run off Jalen Sundell's ass and Anthony Bradford and get that right up that pipe in there. And to the point, that safety at the top of the screen is probably the guy Ken Walker's going to see first. But Ken Walker can't stretch this when Sundell is beat. Like on this rep here, Sundell is not going to be able to recover because Walker's going to keep extending this. And sure enough, it blows up. This is run right off Jalen Sundell's ass. Put your foot in the ground and get north-south.
This has got to be a cut inside. It absolutely has to be. And look, I've had a lot of people on social media that have been saying like, well, I'm going to show you a still, and the still shows that there was no hole. Like, NFL holes last for a millisecond. So that's why it is so crucial that when, he had time here, he had the football in his hands, you can cut this back. And, the two running backs I talked to, we all were in agreement on this, that you can understand, initially the initial step was inside for Mario Edwards, the defensive tackle there. The step was initially inside, but by the time he had gotten to the football and he had in his hands, it was clear the 3-tech had given his intention, what he was going to do. He had the outside shoulder at that point. Like, you have got to cut that instead. And again, I'm not a big guy on stills because I don't think it paints the entire picture, but this still that we've got right here, like, what are you bouncing into there? You're bouncing right into where the defense is playing this. Anthony Bradford is getting to the second level. Sundell can at least seal that guy off. Abraham Lucas is going to get a hand on his guy. And the tight end has got the edge where there is a hole here. I think he could have got 20 yards on this run, on this split zone. And I just
totally agree, Corbin.
I just don't. I'll play the whole play here just so our listeners or watchers, viewers, whatever, can see this. But it does not make sense to me why this play is bounced. I don't understand. Again, the 3-tech had made his intentions clear here on what he was going to do. He had that outside shoulder free. To me, that's a clear, easy read on the scheme that you're running on the split zone. You got to bang that back inside.
100%. You have to bang it in there. And that's one thing I think that Ken Walker is struggling with is reading off this properly and reading these run cues properly and understanding, like, I'm not fast enough to get outside. There is a sideline right there. I am not going to get out there, especially when the other player in that equation, the Gray Zabel is blocking, also has the outside leverage. So where's this hole going to magically appear for you as you stretch this out? It's not going to. Once the defense has that leverage in an outside zone system, you got to find your cutback and get north-south as quickly as possible. And that's where, if you look back, Corbin, to where this system comes from, and all those running backs Mike Shanahan had in Denver that just kept churning out 1,000 yards, was because they understood that and were able to get their foot in the ground and get north-south.
Yeah, I'm loading my second play here as we discuss this, but I have been around a lot of different types of coaches over the years, and there's different ways of saying it, but for me, my O-line coach that I worked with, and I stuck with this when I was coaching running backs myself, when you're running these outside or inside zones and you're reading that 3-tech, it was feather the brake, then accelerate. So the ability to not get, too sporadic with your running and allow that read to come accurately to you is crucial. And then once you have that read, then bam, you're up to full speed, go, cut it in. Or if they would have cut inside, then you're cutting outside there and you're trying to find the seam. But that is not the read that he had there. So anyway, that's my take on that split zone. And to me, everybody that I've ever worked with would have agreed that was the read that should have been made there. Let's go to a more positive play, and let's talk a little bit about Cooper Kupp, because one of the things that I loved about this offense coming in for Klint Kubiak, Bryce, I loved that he was going to bring this West Coast Shanahan-style offense that does such a great job with receivers having mirror releases on when they're going to run block and then when they're running routes. And Cooper Kupp is the master at doing that, not just because he's a great run blocker and teams have to take him seriously for that, but he just knows how to take advantage of the defense lulling to sleep when they think, oh, he's getting ready to hand the ball off and he's coming down to block me. And then he sneaks back and finds room. He finds zones. And he did that on this play to get a 32-yard gain. And so Seattle motioned him over. He is tightly nestled into the tackle. And I just want you to watch the way that you can see why a linebacker would think, oh, he's coming in to block me, and then turns on the burners, wide open, 32-yard catch. And it's even more obvious when you watch the end zone view of this. And you can just see the way that he was able to sell this run. It looked like a run block on a play action pass. So I'm going to play the end zone view for you here real quick. You can see, again, he's motioning back over and then he's nestled, taking the play call here from Sam Darnold. And just watch the way the defense reacts here. They're expecting him. They all sit. They're expecting he's going to block them. And then he catches him flat-footed, 32-yard gain. So
the other really interesting thing on this is what Sam does to help influence giving Kupp even more ability to kind of get lost and forgotten about is if you watch him come off this play action, Sam actually shuffles to the left and has his body and everything influenced like he's going to throw that over route that's coming, and it holds these safeties in the middle of the field even longer to allow Kupp to get up that sideline. And that's just, again, being comfortable. Like here, bounce.
I love the shuffle step. I love that you point that out because I noticed that when I was watching this play live too. In action from the press box. And that is exactly what he's doing. I'm going to buy just a sliver more time here, and then I'm going to get Cooper Kupp open there. And it got those guys in the middle, the linebackers, safeties, they were caught flat-footed by the way they sold this. So much of successful play action is the way you sell it. And I just think the scheme does a great job. And Cooper Kupp is, again, he's a master at it.
The best thing about the scheme too, Corbin, that you kind of touched on with it being from this West Coast, Bill Walsh, Shanahan, McVay tree is you're running this play, but it looks so much like another play and another play and another play and another play. And that's what's so beautiful about it is you're not having it where, okay, when we run this, we only run it out of a certain formation. They could run that route for Cooper Kupp out about 5 or 10 different formations because the run action is similar out of 5 or 10 different formations. It's so nice that it's not, like, it may seem boring to the average person. Oh, we're running under center again. It's play action. Like, for me, this is great because this is how elite offenses function. It's not about having 700 different formations and plays. It's about having maybe like 10, 15 different formations and like 50 plays off of one particular look that everyone's comfortable with and know what to do.
Similar dressing, as I like to call it. You want to have a bunch of looks that have similar dressing to it. And then you can put, as the year progresses, you can put more tweaks to it. And you can do that for game planning too. In the NFL, especially, like, hey, this particular team, I think we should install this week, a branch, so to speak, off the tree. And you still have similar dressing. So I think that is absolutely what we saw there. Final play. I want to go to the defensive side of the football because we've looked at offense the first two. What a game Drake Thomas had for the Seahawks, in particular in coverage, 3 pass breakups. And his last one was the most impressive here because anytime you have a linebacker end up on a running back and a play gets extended, you start to worry about athleticism taking over. The running back's going to get open downfield. Quarterback sends the play out of the pocket. and now our linebacker is going to get burned. And it initially looked like that might be what happens here to Drake Thomas going up against Woody Marks out of the backfield, and it's an out and then up, gets the step, but look at the recovery here, Bryce, and then playing the football, not getting busted for pass interference. That was absolutely textbook. Going to play it one more time here. Just perfect recovery, and then the technique at the end of this play after Stroud had extended it on the scramble. It was a really good throw, but even better defense to swat that away from him. This is another example why Drake Thomas has stolen that job and he's not giving it back to Tyrese Knight.
Oh, it completely is, Corbin. And that's the thing I think you see with Drake Thomas in some respects, where Tyrese Knight, I don't think is as good right now in his NFL career, is this coverage aspect. This is something that we knew when they brought Drake Thomas in, and the Raiders were so upset. Well, their fan base, I should say, more specifically, was so upset when we got him. Was he was such a good coverage linebacker coming into the NFL. It was, could he do the run fits? Could he, be an explosive tackler? Well, we've seen that that's now starting to come into Drake Thomas's game. To me, him and Ernest Jones are a great pairing right now because he covers as well as Ernest does, and he's got the same level of instincts in some respects to make plays and do things, and he's just got a motor that just goes.
Yeah, he's so much fun to watch. And like I said, this was one of 3 pass breakups that he had in this game. It was so much fun to watch, but that was the one that jumped out to me in the press box, because you're seeing like a lot of linebackers in that situation would have panicked and they would have gotten a pass interference call at the end. Drake Thomas didn't. He made up the separation gap there. He got his head turned to play the football, got his arm out extended, and he didn't make illegal contact. Like, that was textbook in every way, shape, and form against a guy who is considered to be one of those really good 3 down backs that can do a lot of damage as a receiver in Woody Marks. And he was all over him, but he did it legally and made that really nice play down there to get the pass breakup.
And that's why now he is your starting weak side linebacker, and why I don't necessarily think it's such a position of need as some people are freaking out about, going, hey, we need to go get a linebacker at the trade deadline because we can't have Drake Thomas is a good linebacker for the system. And Mike Macdonald also kind of a linebacker guru, right? Like, that's what he's known for, is knowing about his linebackers. I don't think he'd be saying the things he does about Drake Thomas publicly if Drake Thomas wasn't performing to the level. Exactly. So that was our film breakdown, everyone. Make sure you guys check that out. I want to talk to you about this, Corbin, and it's the offensive misfires. And there were some situations in this game from Klint Kubiak's play calling, whether it be the managing of the time at the end of the first half, or whether it be the random decisions that he's constantly had throughout the season of, let's sprinkle in a random trick play or splashy play when we're marching the ball down the field and stalling out drives. What do you make of this? Because, like, for example, we use the Cooper Kupp play in this game. Sam Darnold is moving the ball. They're moving it effectively. They're up 14-0. They're about potentially to go up 21-0 going into the halftime. And then you are at, like, I think it was about the 25, and you bring out this play, and the route's not even that deep. It's JSN running like a 7 to 8 yard under route. It just didn't make any sense to me. Like, can you elaborate from your point of view, Corbin, on what you thought about that?
As soon as they pitched the ball to Cooper Kupp and he was getting ready to throw, I had the same reaction that every Mariners fan in the press box had when George Springer hit the 3-run homer. I obviously, as a Blue Jays fan, was feeling a little differently on that play, but my point is, like, immediately, oh no. I started thinking back to the DJ Dallas pick a few years ago, the Josh Gordon one that was in Carolina, and I just started thinking, like, I'm not completely anti-trick play, but, like, if your offense had been sputtering and you were just looking for something to give you a spark, then I understand it. This just felt completely inexcusable. Like, and the explanation for Mike Macdonald that, well, we want to be aggressive. Like, this to me was not aggressive. This to me was malpractice. Like, Cooper Kupp was 0 for 4 in his career as a passer too. So you had tape. No offense to Cooper Kupp, but, like, I don't understand the play call. I don't know why you take the ball out of your quarterback's hand when he was slinging it there. And they've had a few other times this year they've made really cute play calls down. And I just do what's working. You don't have to get into this bag of tricks all the time. Like, run your offense. Like they said that's what they were going to do. I just don't understand. I didn't understand the play call. And here's the thing, Jackson Smith-Njigba was open. Like if Cooper Kupp would have made the throw, then, maybe we're having a discussion. I still would have said, like, why'd you take the ball out of his hands, out of Sam Darnold's hands, even if he completes it? I'm not a fan of the play call.
No, and there was another one in the game. I don't know if a lot of Seahawks fans remember it, but they come out and Zach Charbonnet is a single back, and all of a sudden Ken Walker's lined up as a tight condensed slot, which is a formation they've never shown all year, really. And then you turn around and run this weird toss to Ken Walker that loses like 7 or 8 yards and like puts you in second and long. And it's just like, there doesn't seem to be like we just talked about it earlier with the plays about how everything's got similar dressing. And then you add a little bit of, spice and seasoning to it with different actions and stuff, or branches off on routes and stuff. The stuff when they go to these trick plays are like formations we haven't seen all season long. And they just kind of stick out like sore thumbs in a lot of ways. And then the plays they run off them do the same thing. Like, Milroe's speed option. Like it just doesn't marry up with the rest of this offense. It feels like their trick bag is like completely in this other playbook.
Look, Mike Macdonald didn't say it, but like that play needs to go in the freezer. Like don't run it. Honestly, if I was going to run that, I would have run it with Torrey Horton because Torrey Horton used to be a quarterback. Like and even then I probably would have been like, no, I'm not. I just don't think this team needs to do that right now. They're moving the football well with their quarterback consistently. I don't see a reason for them to do that. I really don't, maybe I'd feel differently at a college level. NFL, I just don't. I don't like the play call. I didn't like the time management at the end of the first half. I felt like a third grader was playing Madden when I was watching that. And that might be insulting third grader, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know how you have 3 timeouts with 57 seconds to go, and then you let 20 plus seconds burn, and then you decide, you know what, I'm going to use one of my time. The whole thing was just ragtag. And Mike Macdonald, at least on that one the next day, it wasn't good. You didn't want him to double dip, and you ended up letting him double dip because of the poor mismanagement that he had of the clock. I don't understand what's going on there. And that's happened a lot this year. There have been end of halves where it's either been outstanding or it's been horrendous. There's been no mid ground with how they handle those 2-4-minute offensive situations.
Yeah, and that's one thing you got to think, in this bye week here, they're going to be doing hard evaluations on that exact thing. Like,
time. Yep.
Exactly. It's all self-scout right now. As a coach, I know this is one week I used to love when I do coach is that bye week, because you spend more time self-scouting yourself and figuring out things where you're like, you go back and watch and you're like, why did I do that? Like, what was the reasoning in my head at that particular moment to call the Cooper Kupp reverse pass play or the Milroe speed option or whatever it is? Like, it allows you and gives you that option to kind of correct those habits going forward. So hopefully we see that coming out of this game when we play the Commanders in a couple weeks, that we see better time management. We don't see the trick plays, and thankfully we won't be selling the Jalen Milroe package because he's the emergency third string quarterback. So it's like this tease to Klint Kubiak. He's there. He's suited up. You can't put him on the field, though, unless you lose your other 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I have a harder time with that one because I still see some reason to want to try to do that, but it's just, I think at this point, you let the kid learn on the sideline.
Yeah.
If you were willing to have him pass, like I think if they had Milroe throw at one of those points, I think you're going to suddenly see teams like, oh wait, they actually will throw it in these, and it might work more successfully for you. But it's been very predictable what they're doing with him in these packages. So yeah, I think the emergency QB right now, especially with some of the injuries they've had, that's what you stick with for right now.
So Corbin, I want to get a stock up for you and a stock down on players on this roster. So give me one player for you at the midpoint now of the season, this bye week, that stock has risen from where it was maybe in the offseason, the preseason, and then someone's stock that's gone completely in the other direction for you.
So, look, we talked so much about Drake Thomas, and we've talked about Ty Okada. And I've got to go with Okada just because going into the season, I didn't know if he was making this football team or not. Like, this was such a deep safety position, but Macdonald had talked him up so much that I just felt like at the end of the year, he was on my last projection for 53-man. I was like, he'll be there. He'll be on this roster. He made the team. And then I thought he'll probably be a guy that's going to be inactive most games. ends up being active that season opener, even Warrior gets hurt. He gives up a touchdown a few plays into that game, and you're just thinking, Seattle's like, what do? We can't trust him in this situation or whatever. And then you have the injuries that force him into the starting lineup a couple weeks later. And like I said, they're 3-1 in the games that he started. And it's interesting. You talk about some of the parallels with Kobe Bryant. I think he does a lot of things football-wise similarly, but he is a more athletic player than what Kobe Bryant is. He tested much better than what Kobe Bryant did. And I think that he's a little bit more vicious up in the box. Like you can do a little bit more with him in terms of his tenacity. And both these guys have some tenacity. That's not taken away from Kobe Bryant, but I just think there's some mean energy to the way that Takada plays the game. And now that you're adding confidence to that, he's making plays in the football. He's getting sacks. That pass breakup he had in the end zone, Reek Woolen was beat on that. Xavier Hutchinson's got a touchdown there, but Takada said, nope, I'm Dikembe Mutombo in this. Not today, buddy. And it seems like every week he is getting significantly better as he gets more comfortable and more confident. I could talk Drake Thomas in this too. Both those guys have improved so much, but Okada to me is the guy when you're talking stock up from where he was at. Like Drake Thomas was on this roster. Okada was trying to stay on it. For him to have the trajectory to where he's at now, where like he looks like he's at least, he's a guy that can be a spot starter at least in this league, maybe more than that. I've seen worse safety play from starters on other teams in the league than what we've seen from Takada. Testament to Mike Macdonald and this team, but also him doing his job. So to me, he's easily the one for stock up. And then on the stock down end of things, there's a few names I could mention here. We could pile it on Tyrese Knight. I don't even know necessarily that Tyrese Knight was playing bad football. It's just Drake Thomas earned the job. He was playing better football. So, I'm going to say Nehemiah Pritchett on this, and maybe it'll surprise some people, but Nehemiah Pritchett had a really good preseason and training camp. And when Reek Woolen had some of the struggles early in the year, I posted on social media, like, if he's going to keep having these penalties and missed tackles and stuff, like play Nehemiah Pritchett, and he comes in and gives up two touchdowns very quickly, misses some tackles. Like, I just have been disappointed because I thought we were going to get a sophomore jump there where he could come in and play some snaps for you. And now you're thinking, I'm going to play Darion Kendrick on the outside now if I get in that situation, or Shaquille Griffin's coming up. They're not going to play Pritchett. So to me, from a stock down perspective, he's been a significant disappointment for me for what I saw in training camp in the preseason.
So for me, I'll say this, my stock up guy, you stole my thunder a little bit with Takada there, Corbin. But for me, my other one is AJ Barner. From, what he did last year to where he is now, and really proving like he could end up being one of the better all-around tight ends in the NFL with his skill set, blocking, catching, doing those things, becoming a vocal point in this offense to a point outside of JSN. His stock for me is going up. My stock down has got to be Kenneth Walker. And it's getting farther and farther down. It's just the more I watch and the more I see him struggle and the more I do the all 22 dives, and I really want to see Ken Walker work. I just don't know if he works with the targeting system that's built into the tracks for this run game. And if he can figure it out, maybe he proves me wrong over the second half of the season, but going into the second half, Ken Walker's got to find a way to turn around, because contract year, again, I could have piled on to like a Boy Mafe situation where there's a lot of talk about him, but I figured that, K9 needs to start showing something, or K9 may not be here in 2026 with Seattle. So with that being said, Corbin, let's talk about the trade deadline before we, end up closing out and wrapping up the show. What do you think Seattle does? Are they going to ride it out, or are they bringing in some reinforcements, do you think?
I think they're getting reinforcements. John Schneider this maybe is his biggest strength. He has dominated making trades at the trade deadline. And maybe it'll be for somebody that we're not talking about. Like, nobody was talking about Quandre Diggs as a trade target. Carlos Dunlap kind of at the last second was on the radar, but he wasn't being talked about much. Ernest Jones last year, he had just been traded like a month and a half earlier. So I don't think anybody was talking about that. And John Schneider goes out and finds those guys. But there's a few names that I have my short list that I think people should be keeping an eye on. In New York, you just drafted Carter out of Penn State. You've got Brian Burns on a massive deal. Kayvon Thibodeau, I think, is a guy that may be available. I'm calling them to see if I can shore up the depth for my edge for now and next year. He had his 5th-year option picked up, so he's under contract. He wouldn't be a rental for a year. So I think that he could be a guy that makes some sense. Marlon Humphrey in Baltimore. If Rick Woolen is really in the way out, which I don't know what to make of that from the discussions that I've had. I know there has been some frustrations with the coaching staff on some things, but at the same time, they're going to have to get something that blows them away. But Marlon Humphrey had some of his best seasons playing for Mike Macdonald as a defensive coordinator. And I think he's still a really good football player that fits this scheme well. And he's in near the end of his contract. So that is one that's affordable that you can digest salary cap wise. And I'm going to mention the name that makes a lot of Seahawks fans ticked off, Wyatt Teller. But I'm going to say what I've said for the last year because I've mentioned this a bunch of times. I don't think that Uchenna Nwosu is going to care about that injury that happened on that illegal block. If Seattle sits down with them and says, we think Wyatt Teller is going to give us a better chance to compete in the playoffs, win NFC West, compete for a Super Bowl, look, get him in the same locker room. Everything I've heard is Wyatt Teller's a good locker room guy. I think that they could, if there's anything that needs buried, I think they can bury the hatchet. I think Wyatt Teller at right guard, significant upgrade. And oh, by the way, another guy, end of his contract, that you're not going to be on the hook for a ton of salary cap money. I think you call Cleveland to see if you can get that done and upgrade the interior of your offensive line.
So I like all of those names, Corbin. I'd love to see any one of those names end up in Seattle. I'm going to throw one more that's a dream for me out there. We talked about it a bit off air, but if somehow you can pick up that phone and call the Las Vegas Raiders, and I know everyone's expecting me to say, hey, find out how much it's going to take to get Max Crosby. No, I want Jackson Powers Johnson. I want them to go get him, bring him in, put him at his natural position at center. That would be the guy that I'd be trying to find out because they don't want to play him at center in Vegas. You know, Jackson Powers Johnson wants to be a center. He spoke about it in the offseason, even introduced himself to Ashton Genty. Hey, I'm your center. He's been stuck at right guard, and I think it's affecting his play. Maybe you can work something out with Pete where we are able to get JPJ up here in Seattle and let him anchor the middle of that Seattle offensive line. So, Corbin, the last thing that I always do with any of my guests that come on, we run through a 2-minute drill situation. So I'll give you 10 rapid-fire questions. You're afforded 1 timeout during this process. And so we'll get into that right after this. All right, Corbin, question 1 for you. In one word, what's the identity of the Seahawks through 7 games?
Tough.
Question 2, has Sam Darnold exceeded or met your expectations coming into the season so far?
Exceeded.
Okay. Question 3, what's the single biggest fix Klint Kubiak needs to make over the bye to the offense?
Get rid of your trick plays.
Is Jackson Smith and Jigba already considered one of the best receivers in Seahawks history? Yes or no? Okay. Question 5. What has been the most underrated part of Mike Macdonald's defense this year?
Time out for a second here, just because I have like 3 things popping in my head. So I'll use my time out here. Most underrated aspect, I would say that the depth they've had in the interior defensive line, getting good plays out of Mike Morris and Brandon Peely, that they've exceeded my expectations. The way that they've used them has exceeded my expectations.
Okay. Question 6. If you're John Schneider, are you buying or are you potentially even selling a piece of this team or standing pat at the trade deadline?
As I mentioned earlier, buy.
Okay. X factor. Which player could completely change Seattle's second half of the season if they get on track? What could be the X factor player?
It's Devin Witherspoon. I mean, he's missed all but 2 games this year, and we know what kind of talent he is. This defense playing the way they are, if he can play to his capabilities, takes him to another level.
Okay. Question 8. Are the Seahawks legit NFC contenders or a tier below the elite?
I'm still saying tier right below, but that could change again as we get to the second half of the season. I think they're on the cusp.
Okay. Question 9. What has impressed you most about this coaching staff as a whole this season?
The depth standpoint and the willingness to not have lip service about competition. If you earned your reps, you're going to play.
Okay. Question 10 and the final question here. What is the final record for the Seattle Seahawks before the playoffs?
12-5.
All right. And that's the 2-minute drill. Corbin, thank you so much, man, for coming on and doing another show here. First one for you, actually, on the Hawks eye, which is awesome. Now that I'm now running my own show here. But Corbin, why don't you tell my listeners and viewers where they can find more of your stuff, what you got going on at Emerald City Spectrum, what's going on at Lockdown, and just where they can find your stuff, man.
Yeah, 5 days a week, Locked On Seahawks, available on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And EmeraldCitySpectrum.com, we've got coverage for 11 pro and college teams in the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle region. So make sure to check that out at EmeraldCitySpectrum.com. I'm going to have a bunch of report cards coming up this week since we're on bye week. Position groups, looking at award season. Midway, we're not quite there, but we're going to pretend it is. All that stuff is on EmeraldCitySpectrum.com.
Perfect. Well, Corbin, thanks so much again for your time, man. And you know what? Hopefully we can talk before the end of the season and kind of do another film breakdown on hopefully Seattle's running game improving.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it.
Corbin Smith coming on from the Emerald City Spectrum and Locked On Seahawks podcast. He's a beat reporter for the Seahawks. Corbin is one of my go-to sources for anything when I need to find out what's kind of going on with the team, what's happening in behind the scenes, and Corbin's phenomenal. And so I can't stress enough, everyone, go sign up to the Emerald City Spectrum to get, subscribe to it. It's less than a cup of coffee for, at Starbucks. And I know everyone, loves their Starbucks or loves their coffee. So sub up to that for Corbin as well as Locked On Seahawks. Hope you guys enjoyed the film breakdown. Got a couple other things that'll be coming out this week over the bye. And don't forget, next Wednesday night, as this will be dropping before it, we have the next Seahawks Syndicate show with myself, Dan Viens, Mookie Alexander, and Brandon Kane. I will be hosting it over here on the Hawk side, but it'll be up on Seahawks Forever and the Hawk Nest as well. And we're going to be breaking down everything going on with the Seahawks up to this bye week, what we think could potentially be going on. And if they're at that point, there could be some trades that the Seahawks may or may not have made as they prep for that game against the Washington Commanders on Sunday night. So with that being said, if you haven't already, subscribe, click that notification button. And as always, go Hawks. Have a good night, everyone.